And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook on this President's Day, Monday, February 19th, 2024. And we have a number of things going on. The pattern shift I was promising would be unfolding now for this week is underway. We still have low pressure in the Bering, weakening, a stronger one entering in the west out toward the Aleutians, and then a low coming up out of the North Pacific that'll be crossing the upper half of the Alaska Peninsula back toward Bristol Bay and then moving up into the southwest interior as we go through the day on Tuesday. Further to the east, though, quiet weather continues. This has been the pattern. A little break in the weather for a while, and that will continue across the Panhandle, but weather's going to get more active across the Gulf. The next batch of snow and rain to hit the Panhandle will be arriving especially Thursday into Friday, especially Thursday afternoon through early Friday morning. Moderate to heavier snow and rain will impact the Panhandle, but before then, we expect widespread IFR across the northwestern, western Gulf, Cook Inlet, especially on the southern slopes here of the Alaska Range from Windy Pass down along the Alaska Peninsula in the areas of the interior. Plenty of low ceilings just due to this moisture coming northward. We're going to see temperatures in at least the lower, some middle 40s potentially riding up through Cook Inlet as a result of this surge of southerly moist air that's coming up from the North Pacific and into the western Gulf. A band of IFR along the south slopes of the Brooks Range into the lower Chukchi, western Seward Peninsula. Widespread IFR for Tuesday afternoon from along the south slopes there of the Brooks Range, lower Chukchi, Seward Peninsula into the western southwest interior, and then out over much of the northern and western portion of the Gulf. We also have IFR conditions way out there toward the western and middle Aleutians. MVFR bumps in there to the Panhandle, though again, the main precipitation event for the Panhandle is coming Thursday into early Friday. And then we find Wednesday morning IFR conditions along the northern Gulf Coast extending up into the Copper River Basin, also out in areas of the middle Yukon Valley, and then up along the North Slope, Brooks Range, Arctic coast, the Seward Peninsula. And with the low that's out in the lower western Bering, we have the arc associated with this arc of IFR associated with the frontal system that will be pushing eastward. But again, things are going to start to move more from east northeastward, so from west southwest to east northeast, and occasionally some energy and moisture being pulled up out of the North Pacific here as we go through this upcoming week. Wednesday afternoon, we anticipate areas of IFR here across the Copper River Basin, just on the interior of the northern coast, and then back here through areas of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest interior along and just west of the Alaska Range, pockets of IFR along the Brooks Range, central eastern sections there, again on Wednesday afternoon. Still a little bit of a break, especially the central southern Panhandle as we go through the day on Wednesday. But again, the next surge of moisture will be coming across the Gulf and impacting the Panhandle as we go into Thursday and Friday. So past conditions on Tuesday, a lot of moisture riding northward, warmer air. Anaktuvik Pass will see low ceilings, some areas of precipitation, IFR at Adigan Pass, and as we come down along the west arm of the Alaska Range, IFR conditions Lake Clark and Merrill riding up through Rainy Pass as well as Windy Pass because we have just that warm moist air riding northward up along the Susitna Valley. A little further east, Isabel should generally hold as MVFR on Tuesday, and then same thing, Metasta Pass, generally widespread MVFR conditions in that area. As we go further south across the Copper River Basin, northern Copper River Basin, generally MVFR, Tanita Pass, MVFR, and then as we get down closer to the coastal mountains in those areas, we expect widespread IFR from the middle of Portage Pass out through Prince William Sound. MVFR conditions there out toward the west entrance of Portage. And then finally, in the northern end of the Panhandle, we expect Chilkoot and White to have MVFR conditions on Tuesday. So looking at freezing levels, the surface freezing line rides up through the lower Bering Sea to about St. Paul, comes in around Bristol Bay, and then rides up northward, creeping upward into the Mat-Su Valley, and then running along the Gulf Coast into the inner channels of the Panhandle for Tuesday morning. And notice freezing levels aloft do bump upwards 2 to 4, even 6,000 feet here once you get down to the North Pacific. The low pressure will be crossing the Alaska Peninsula this Monday night into Tuesday morning, so a belt of stronger winds will be pulling that milder and moist air northward. When we look at the greatest threat for icing, it's going to be across areas of south central Alaska Range, southwest interior, out over the Gulf above 6,000 feet, areas over south central generally above 4,000 feet, and then along the south slope of the Brooks Range, pretty good likelihood of moderate icing above 1,000 feet. And then behind me, we have the frontal system and the low pressure out here through the western portion of the Aleutians into the southwest Bering Sea, and generally moderate icing associated with those features above 2,000 feet. Looking at the jet stream winds 30,000 feet, we have this ridge of high pressure in the upper atmosphere. Southerly flow aloft at 30,000 feet is in excess of 100 knots from out of the North Pacific along the western Gulf, riding up into the west central interior. And then behind me, the strong jet core. We have winds west-northwest down there across the North Pacific, just south of the Aleutians, upwards of 150 to 155 knot jet core. And at 9,000 feet, again, light winds above the Panhandle, not the main action, the result of this strong mid-level southerly flow coming across the Alaska Range. This makes for a lot of turbulence along the ridge lines and peaks of the Alaska Range. Winds 70, 80 knots at that level from the south. Back here, we find winds in excess of 100 knots just from or near the central Aleutians southwestward. And then when we bring it down to 3,000 feet, we see a core winds from the south, anywhere from about 40 to 55 knots coming up into south central. That's helping to bring in that milder air. Back to the west, broad belt of 45 to 65 knot winds wrapped around this low pressure in the southwest corner of the Bering Sea. And of course, up in the far north, we still have some stronger winds coming in along the north slope and western portion of the northwest Arctic coast out into the upper Chukchi Sea, anywhere from 45 to 65 knots. So that's where all the turbulence is. It's going to be areas along the northwest Arctic coast, western Brooks Range, dropping down into the western interior, along the Alaska Range, surface to 10,000 feet, surface to 4,000 feet here as we go into areas of south central and then out over the Gulf, surface to 6,000 feet down there, eastern Kenai down into Kodiak Island. And then back out here to the west, we expect considerable moderate turbulence, surface to 3,000 feet, especially the central western Aleutians, where there could even be some areas of severe turbulence on Tuesday.